Welcome to Monster Menagerie, brought to you by the Paladin Archives. My name is Mason Kren. Mason's the title, Kren's the name. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. It's the month of love and romances here at the Archives. So, it seems to me that we should find a demon that embodies the spirit of love. I searched high and low for a proper ambassador of the holiday, and I think I managed to find one. The Queen of Makai, the libido roaming in the shadows, Morrigan. I have to admit, it's always intimidating when I try to research a game character. So much of their lore is usually spread out through their games, hidden in corners and side quests, but Morrigan is from a fighting game. And not just any game, but one birthed at the height of the arcade fighter, smack dab in the middle of the 90s. So, I actually had the opposite problem. Her lore is as thin as the fabric covering her alluring form. But I am nothing if not diligent, so, just for you guys, I dove headfirst into her games, the OVA, and even some official Japanese guides on her games. Yes, it was all for the lore, because I'm a good researcher. A little reminder of how things work around here. Just like last year with the vampires, we're going to be examining one demon a month up until December, when we look over the lot and decide which ones really stood out as exemplary specimens of demon kind. And when the time comes, you can help us decide by swinging by the Paladin Archives Discord server and voting. While you're there, check out some amazing art, make your suggestions for our next demon, and hang out with some friendly people. I'm always there myself if you ever want to talk about the Paladins. Alright, enough shilling. Let's take a look at Capcom's literal femme fatale, the queen of the demon world, Morrigan. So I generally have one rule when I do these analyses. Stick to one instance of the character. Let's look back at last year with the vampires. Dracula was up first, and there's no shortage of media about him. But I picked the 1931 film, which meant I wasn't looking at Bram Stoker's novel, nor was I looking at any of the other myriad of films bearing the Lord of Wallachhia's name. When I covered Edward Cullen, I knew there were 5 movies to look at. But I restricted the analysis to just the first one. No sequels, no books. I made a few exceptions where needed, but for the most part, this was a pretty hard rule. Heck, I even did it last time for Pazuzu. But, well, I feel like we need to have another exception today. Why? Because Morrigan's lore is hard to find. I watched through all 3 mainline Darkstalkers games. I watched all 4 episodes of the Darkstalkers OVA. I learned a lot about her moveset, but not much beyond that. The games tell us virtually nothing about her motivations, her needs, her weaknesses. Now, occasionally, before I start proper research on a character, I'll stop by their wiki page to get an idea of what I'm working with. And boy, do the various Darkstalkers, Capcom, and Succubi wikis have a lot to say about her. But do you know who they cite for their information? Each other. They talk about a lot of interesting ideas, things that would be very important to know if I was making a report on her for the Paladins. But these things aren't reflected in the games. They aren't reflected in the OVA. I have no idea where they're getting the information. But, with a little assistance, I stepped out of my comfort zone and did some more in-depth research. I'm talking about interviews with the creators in Japanese, art books, and all-about books. Consider it the equivalent of me delving into the archives to research an unknown monster, because without that, I have very little I can share with you about her. Well, at least, very little I can verify. With that in mind, I do want to send out a couple of thanks to some lovely people online who reached out to this little Mason and provided some amazing supplementary material. On Reddit, users AshConwell7 and Asura177. And over on Twitter, users Wiggy at Ballad of an Aeon and Corintio at The Corintio. You guys were all super amazing and super helpful. A big thank you from the bottom of my heart. Just to be clear though, I'm not going to be making a habit of this. The main rule still stands. We're going to try to restrict our analysis to a single instance going forward. It just so happens that the canon material for Morrigan tells us so very little. Well, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get things started, shall we? Here is Morrigan Einsland's backstory. Xemi, you still here, girl? I heard you're a big fan of Morrigan.
Dude, this space is so freaking huge. Where do I get out of here? I swear I'm stuck in an endless maze. Oh shit. Oh, my part. Okay. Yes, I am still here, Kren. If you didn't make this room so large, then I would have been gone by now. But I guess you're stuck with me for another segment, okay? Alright, what? We're talking about Morrigan this time. Oh my gosh, I fucking love Morrigan. Oh my gosh, Morrigan, I love her. Like, what's not to love about her? She's like, what? Demon apparently? This is news to me. I always thought she was a vampire. I don't know why the hell they made her a demon when she's obviously a vampire. Well, I guess succubus if we're being more specific. But whatever. Let's talk about Morrigan. I mean, what's not to love about her? Just looking at her and her green luscious hair. And oh my gosh, just everything, you know. She's in a game that's about fighting for a reason, because she can kick my ass any freaking day, 24 hours a day. And then look at those thighs, bro. Come on, I would let her crush my head with those. Like, they're so strong, long, luscious, and they look, I appreciate all bodies, and her body is perfect for me. And then don't forget about those big strong arms. She's gonna be able to carry me. I won't even need my wings anymore. She just has to swoon me away with her nice luscious arms, and then I could just lay my head on her soft, nice, totally soft marshmallowy poop. Wait, what are we talking about again? I feel like I'm just venting about things I like about her. She's perfect. That's all we need to know. Anyways, I gotta make my way out of here. See ya, Kren.
Xemi, I asked for her backstory. Like, you know, how we got to the present state of... You know what? Don't sweat it. That was illuminating. I'll fix it in post. Anyway, Morrigan is a succubus, a race of demons known in our world for visiting men in their dreams and draining their, essence. According to supplementary material, she's the adopted daughter of the former ruler of Makai, the demon world. This demon, known as Belial, took in a young Morrigan and realized that her power was so great, it threatened to rip her apart. As a precaution, he pulled from her 1/3 or 2/3? I have conflicting reports. Either way, he drew a not insubstantial portion of her soul aside and locked it away. Despite this, Morrigan is still an incredibly powerful warrior, able to stand up to foes like Demitri Maximoff, the exiled vampire who once challenged her father and who's been gathering his strength to invade her kingdom. Morrigan is the ruler of Makai, more recognized by demon nobility than by herself. Apparently, the populace and ruling class of the demon world are stuffy and conservative, and she finds the whole place terribly boring. Now, this is all the games give us for her motivation to visit the human world, but the supplementary materials mention that succubi sustain themselves not only from draining the essence of their prey, the life energy, but also from just stimulation, apparently. The All About Vampire Savior book mentions that stimulation causes them to produce a secretion within themselves that sustains them, and without it, say they were imprisoned or something, they'd die within 2 days. I mention this here only because it seems that dying of boredom is a distinct possibility for Morrigan, so her making frequent jaunts to the human world makes total sense to me. To be fair though, the same book also mentions that the Ainsland clan typically steals the dreams of their victims, absorbing a secretion from within their prey's brain and leaving them feeling strange. This isn't necessarily mutually exclusive from the stimulation method mentioned before, but I do hope it gives you a little hint as to how confusing gathering her lore is. Between the games and the OVA, we basically have her intercepting Demitri, who intends to retake Makai, but also they're interrupted by the, Huitzil. I think that's right. I guess they were created by the game's end boss, Byron, with their main function being to destroy any life on Earth that grew too powerful. Oh, speaking of Byron, he shows up there too. In the end, if we go by Morrigan's story, she defeats the extraterrestrial executioner and destroys him with a single kiss. Woof, what a way to go. Worth it? I'll get back to you on that one. Anyway, she heads back home and sneaks into bed like a teenager getting in before their parents wake up. We get a little bit more in Darkstalkers Resurrection, where we meet new fan favorite Lilith. Remember that section of Morrigan's soul that got pulled out? Well, it grew a personality over time. Decades, perhaps centuries of watching Morrigan, that piece of soul slowly became Lilith. Granted a temporary body by Belial, I think, Lilith challenged her in an attempt to take her body. Both endings, Lilith and Morrigan, show our seafoam green succubus coming out on top in the end, but she's definitely changed for it. The creators say that Lilith is in there and can manifest, and consider them to be sisters, and the official art depicting them both definitely backs up their, connected nature. Not sure about the sisters thing. Morrigan's abilities are quite numerous, and thanks to the assistance of those lovely people I mentioned earlier, I was able to learn a bit about the succubi as a race. In general, they're able to feed off their prey in the standard way we think of, draining their essence. In fact, we see Morrigan do just this to end the threat of Pyron in her storyline. All About Vampire Savior also mentions that her blood and saliva are powerful aphrodisiacs, and direct ingestion of them can be lethal. Even weirder, Morrigan's scent is enough to make her victims' blood vessels relax and cause them to sweat. It apparently takes someone with great mental fortitude to even try resisting her charm, but apparently it only works on men. You need an incubus to seduce women. As for her more apparent powers, we have a nice little list provided by the games and OVA. There's flight, of course, as if I needed to mention it. She can create a sort of energy projection that can act something like a bullet. This may or may not simply be a toned-down version of her Soul Fist, which is like her version of a Hadouken, but vaguely shaped like a skull? Or a bat? Or a bat's skull? It appears that she can conjure or summon objects, at least ones that are nearby. She even has a twin form which lets her create a clone to double-team her opponent. The real stars of her show, however, are those all-purpose wings. Not only can she summon or dismiss them at a whim, but they can shield her, turn into blades, chains, spear-like tendrils, or even wrap around her feet, effectively turning into a drill. But they're not just restricted to changing shape. They can turn into little bats and head off, doing her bidding as little furry drones. Oh, and even as just bats, they don't lose their usefulness. From a throne to enjoy her victory from, to her very clothes, they can be whatever she needs them to be. Heck, she can apparently become a bat herself. Hey, Maddie. We're sure she's not a vampire, right? Sort of? Oh, right, that makes sense. Apparently she started life as a vampire. Not in canon, but in development of the game. They decided they already had Demitri, so when someone suggested succubus, the development team went, "What's that?" One fun explanation later, and everyone was on board. Back to her powers, there are two left that I find really interesting. First, what I think might be the most intriguing power she has is her ability to plane shift. You see, all demons in Makai require a door in order to move from the demon world to Earth. Even the great and powerful Demitri Maximoff. But Morrigan is different. She can slip back and forth as she desires, which is convenient for her because, as we discussed earlier, she might actually die if not for that ability. Speaking of Demitri, if we follow his storyline in the game to completion, we get to see him defeating our poor Morrigan, preparing to take her as his own. In a desperate bid to prevent him from turning her, she actually turns to stone. Lastly, while I wasn't able to get a good read on her speed, clearly reasonably fast as those are rocket boosters, I was able to get a minimum strength for her. If you'll remember, I mentioned a robot race earlier in the video. A single robot in the game, called the Huitzil. Morrigan directly fights these guys in the anime. According to the supplementary material, each one of these guys weighs in at 2.27 tons. Morrigan has a move in-game called Vector Drain, in which she grabs the opponent, lifts them into the air, drains their energy before driving them headfirst into the ground. Now, because she can perform this move on Huitzil, that means her minimum lifting capacity is 2.27 tons, or a little bit more than your average car. Not too shabby. And to think the best Pazuzu could do was lift a bed. Phew, okay, this one was a lot more cut and dry with The Exorcist. The priests in there used holy water, crucifixes, etc. How do Morrigan's opponents stand against her? By just punching the living out of each other. Energy blasts, stabbing, crushing, electrocution, scratching. That's all well and good, but these are superhuman creatures that make me wonder if a paladin is even capable of fighting someone like Morrigan. Oh, but then the benevolent gods of Capcom bestowed hope upon us. A boon from heaven, or perhaps from hell. The single in-world strategy that can canonically defeat Morrigan, and that the paladins definitely have access to, is embodied by one person. One little girl. Baby Bonnie Hood. Also known as Baby Hood, or in Japan, Buletta. She is confirmed by the developers to be a human, somewhere between 10 and 14 years old, and her strategy of choice?
Use a gun. And if that don't work, use more gun.
Oh yeah, this just came back into the realm of possibility. You remember how we handled Marceline the Vampire Queen last year? She was quite a foe if angered, and I suggested the best way to neutralize her was a Mafia-style hit, just everything all at once. Obviously, we're going to need higher than parish level paladins. For those who don't know, paladins come in 3 flavors: parish, stewardship, and patronage. You can click the little icon that is hopefully appearing on screen to see a short that breaks down the order's organization. I think we're going to need to elevate it to at least stewardship paladins, maybe even call in a patronage level paladin if possible. We don't know how holy relics work on her, and well, it seems like even if it were possible to exorcise her and send her back to Makai, she'd just come back. So yeah, heavy firepower. Despite her being a demon, I think this will definitely be a job for anti-freak and anti-heretic paladins. It seems to me that she doesn't really fight to be cruel, but because she genuinely enjoys the thrill. All About Vampire Hunter states that she doesn't fight to drain the other person's essence, she fights for the stimulation. Whatever paladin responds to this may have to engage her in one-on-one combat, and that means they'll have to be versed in combating opponents that are easily stronger, so anti-freak tactics will definitely come in handy here. Oh, you don't know what I mean by anti-freak and anti-heretic? Well, I just so happen to have another short that explains that too. Yeah, go ahead, give it a click. Just to be safe, let's make sure our responding paladin is female. According to All About Vampire Savior, her charms only work on men. Ooh, I wonder if the famous war maidens of St. Valentina's might be useful for this particular endeavor. I feel like it won't be hard to get her to show up. She loves attention. Hunters tracking her down would frankly excite her. So I think this is a time when we can allow the paladins to be a little loud, make some noise, and then, yeah, probably have to spring a trap with just like all the ammunition we have on hand. She doesn't seem to have much in the way of long-range attacks, just mid-range like her chains or soul fist. So distract her with a strong anti-freak specialist, preferably a woman, and let the support group snipe her. If she survives the initial volley, follow up with just everything. It's not the best plan, but we're dealing with a powerful demon here that doesn't seem to care about spiritual attacks. Time to fall back on the anti-freak motto. Shoot it, then shoot it again. Once again, for those who are new or just don't remember, my job here at the Stewardship is to analyze threats, fill paladins in on information they may need, and of course, make recommendations on how to proceed, even if they never listen. Anyway, part of that process is assigning subjects a threat level, a kind of shorthand to let the paladins in the field know how bad this is going to be. Now, I'll stress, as I always do, that the scale, which goes from 1 to 10, is heavily weighted toward the bottom. That is to say, a level 2 threat isn't twice as bad as a level 1. Getting anything above a 4 means you're a serious threat that may well be out of a typical paladin's capacity to handle. To give you an idea of what we're talking about, a threat level 1 would be like, say, mome raths infesting your pantry. Sure, they may outgribe and otherwise cause a mess, but a single paladin with a pet carrier can take care of that. A 10? Well, as said before, there's no point in worrying about 10s, because there's nothing you can do about it. Like the ceaseless march of time, the constant erosion of all things, the inevitability of death as it stands just outside your view, watching patiently. A level 10 threat is hypothetical, or at least, I pray to God that it's hypothetical. Looking back at last year's vampires, we can see Morrigan is going to rank pretty high. She's definitely in the range of like Marceline or even Ceres Victoria. She can seduce our paladins, she can drain them with a kiss, or she can open her wings and let loose a barrage of missiles. She could impale them multiple ways, or even create a duplicate and double team them. She's very mobile and very versatile. Now, the game suggests that a one-on-one fight can potentially take her down with the right opponent, but the OVA suggests that scores of ancient robots couldn't drop her. So, which is it? Well, if we've learned anything from Princess Bride, it's that
you use different moves when you're fighting. Half a dozen people. Then we only have to be one. About one.
So maybe Morrigan is built for groups? That strangely makes a lot of sense. In the end, though, the game says she's capable of defeating godlike beings. The OVA says she can survive an onslaught of robots. She can disappear into her bat form, morph weapons out of her wings. I'm gonna go ahead and say Morrigan is easily a threat level 5. She's dangerous, but survivable. Played smart, you can escape her, or more likely bore her. As I mentioned in last month's video on Pazuzu, demons have a special ranking to help us understand what we're dealing with as far as their nature. We tagged Pazuzu as a Class 2 demon, meaning there was a certain level of sentience, but they didn't seem able to hold their grip on this plane without a host. The entire movie, practically, Pazuzu was possessing Reagan. Morrigan is very clearly able to exist without a host. In fact, she acts as a host for her sister Lilith. She's not only sentient, but sapient, self-sufficient for a demon, and intelligent. Morrigan is a clear Class 3. Okay, let's do the paperwork. Recommend stewardship or higher level paladins. Female preferred. Heavy vestments to resist piercing and ballistic attacks. Distract with single combat while supporting with overwhelming firepower. And there we go. Morrigan is out there and she's already left Pazuzu in the dust. I wonder if the rest of this year's demons will even have a chance. I can tell you this, I somehow both envy and don't envy whoever goes up against Morrigan. But what did you think? Did you fall under her spell? Was Morrigan as powerful as you thought she was? Maybe more. She definitely caught me off guard, and I'm excited to see where we go from here. Who could possibly follow up after Morrigan? Well, if you have a suggestion, let us know down in the comments. Oh, and feel free to share your Morrigan-centric thoughts down there as well. Don't forget, you can always swing by our Discord server and drop off your suggestions there as well. If you enjoyed our episode today, please give us a like and subscribe. We have a whole year of demons in front of us, and you won't want to miss who comes next. While you're at it, don't forget to check us out over on Twitter, and most especially Twitch, where we play games and even talk about Paladin lore on occasion. A big thanks to Xemi for her part in today's analysis, for what it was. And of course, so much love to Small Quinn for our theme that you're listening to right now. It's called The Mason's Curiosity. Make sure you swing by her Twitter and Twitch and grab yourself some music for your own projects. Link down in the description. Well, I've got to get going. All this Morrigan research got the Archive Masons excited, so we dug up an old arcade cabinet. I got $10 on Maddie to sweep the interdepartment tournament. She is vicious. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's hiding out there.
Just being able to stare at her nice long legs. Like, look at those things. They could crush me. And I would say thank you.